There are little follow-along forms. You should have picked one up in the back. I'll be presenting several different concepts today, this morning and this afternoon, and some of these concepts might be new. So I'm trying to give you a little something to take notes on. In my slides, you'll have the answers as we go through. So hopefully you'll be paying attention. There will not be a quiz at the end, but you can take this home if you want to help you yourself remember some of the concepts that we have covered today. So make sure to grab one of these when you come in. All right, looking at the time. Okay. Great. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to have different memes like this to give myself a break so I can get a drink of water, get a break from my voice. So this is saying there's a person, maybe before I learned about triangles, looking at this butterfly, 100% someone else's issue and asking yourself, is this my problem to fix? Sometimes we have this challenge wondering if other people's problems are automatically our problems as well. So hopefully we're going to learn how to differentiate some of that as we move forward this morning. So it ran in my family until it ran into me. So I'll be teaching you some ways to navigate relationships differently, hopefully providing a new paradigm for understanding relationships and understanding how anxiety and stress is passed down from relationship to relationship this morning, and learning new ways to behave so that we can have different outcomes. So the purpose of this two-part presentation this morning and this afternoon on triangles is to introduce you to the formation, attributes, and dynamics of relational triangles in order to help you more adaptively navigate your own triangles and not inadvertently take on the distress of other people's unresolved conflict. So what do relational triangles look like? How do they operate? And how can we prevent other people from offloading some of their unresolved distress onto our plate? So how can we navigate our lives and other people's relationships a little bit differently? So hopefully, by the end of the seminar, this is what's going to happen. You're going to hopefully understand the formation, attributes, and dynamics of relational triangles. You'll be able to recognize your role and position in a particular triangle, all that's highlighted we're going to be doing this morning. And then this afternoon, we're going to recognize the instability of the triangle and then how we can detriangulate ourselves from those tricky relationships. We're going to try and cover all of this today, and we're going to do the best that we can in the time that we have. All right, this is a sweet little picture. Let me solve your problem for you. What's happening in this picture? What do you see? Raise your hand when you see something that looks interesting or looks cute or something we should take note of. See a hand, or see several hands. Then they all went down. We'll go in the back, yes. Doing something for someone else, something that they might be able to do for themselves. Okay, good. What else do we notice? I like this, but you obviously aren't eating yours. Let me help you. Okay, good. I'm sharing something that I enjoy. Maybe you can also partake in it, right? So that's nice. That's cute. That's caring. That's giving. Good. What else do we notice? Yes?
It might end up, if he continues that way, that I do things better.
Okay, I do things better than you, and the other person on the left might start to have this internal narrative, oh, I can't do things as well as my brother. Okay? So there's a difference between a one-time experience versus a pattern behavior, right? Okay. Looks like this person on the left has also eaten, I don't know if this is dragon fruit or watermelon, I'm not exactly sure, but he has stuff on his lips. There's stuff on this person's cheek as well. They look about the same age. This person is using his hands, so this person is feeding themselves and the other person. What else do we see in this picture? One might be chubbier than the other, or it might just be the angle of light. That's a possibility, right? That's a possibility. Good. What else do we notice? They look like they could be twins. Mm-hmm.
Well, the one being fed has a spoon in his hand.
The one being fed does have a spoon in his hand, and there's a spoon right here too. There's something in his hand here, and there's something here. So there are some utensils available, but he's not using them. Yeah. Yes.
One on the right is making him feed him.
One on the right is making the person on the left feed him? Okay. So my daughter is 5 years old. We are still in Velcro shoes. We will be eventually transitioning to tie shoes, shoelace shoes, sometime. And I know when that happens, there's going to be some protesting, right? And though there's going to be some times when we need to get out the door, there'll probably be some times when I tie the shoe for her. But if I always tie my shoe for her, especially when she protests, she's going to be 19 years old, And she's going to call me, Dad, I'm at the grocery store. My shoe came undone. Will you please come and rescue me? So I will leave work. I'll drive 35 minutes wherever she is. I'll come to the grocery store. She's in the dairy section waiting for me. I will tie her shoes for her, give her a high five, then go back to work, right? So some people need certain support needs, right? Certain scaffolding to succeed, and different people have different support needs. Some people have high support needs, some people have low support needs. So there are times we need to provide more support for certain individuals. But for individuals who are able to function fairly adaptively and fairly normally, sometimes we rob them of opportunities to struggle and learn, because eventually, like, I don't know if this person on the right is able to feed themselves. I have no idea. This is one little snapshot in time, right? This is not necessarily representative of everything they're experiencing, but if this pattern continues, they could have some challenges down the road. When people initially look at this, they might think this is funny, this is cute, but as we talked about, this pattern, if it continues to unfold in this manner, we might have some challenges. Right, so as I talked this morning, I'm talking more as a family life educator and less as a licensed marriage and family therapist. Why? Because when it comes to issues of safety, we might have to take a slightly different approach. So I'll be talking to you in general about relational triangles and how to navigate them, but when it comes to issues of safety and actual well-being, we might have to take a different approach. So on the top, this is a hero coming to the rescue, and in the middle, accepting an invitation to get involved in other people's unresolved conflict, and then at the bottom, having no more emotional capacity to handle my own business. Back in February 2022, I moved with my wife to a new house, and we had two little ones at the time, like a 1 and a 3-year-old. And this had been my first time moving with little kids, and I found out that I don't have as much time to pack. And if I pack my own things, they might be unpacked unless I tape the box up. So I realized I do not like packing my own things. I do not like it. I do not like moving my own things. But I do like helping other people move. Because when I'm dealing with my own stuff, I'm looking at this, trying to decide if I should keep it or not. It has personal memories, put it in the box. Oh, maybe I should put this in a different box for safekeeping. I have to make all these micro decisions. When I'm helping other people move, I'm just trying to figure out if I can put it in the box, tape it up, put it in the garage, and I'm on to the next box. Sometimes we like touching other people's stuff more than we like touching our own stuff. This is similar when it comes to problems. Sometimes it seems easier to help other people with their problems than it is to deal with our own problems right in front of us. So I talked with Randy this morning, and he assured me that everyone was on the same page when it came to this next question. He told me that everyone who is going to be attending this morning all like the exact same thing when it comes to talking about families. We're all on the same page. We all have our favorite thing, our favorite aspect, our favorite topic to talk about, to discuss when it comes to families. So I want to make sure we're on the same page. So I want to give you a few seconds and think in your mind, what is your favorite thing to talk about when it comes to families? And I'm going to count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. After I say 1, we're all going to say that favorite family topic we'd like to discuss. Are we ready? Think about your favorite family topic. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me hear you. In-laws. This is what Randy said. He promised that everyone liked to talk about in-laws. That's what we're going to talk about this morning. All right. So here we are in Genesis 27, and this has been titled Jacob's Deception, right? This is the story of Jacob deceiving his father. Maybe a better description would be Rebecca in the background getting Jacob to deceive his father. And this is the story that we all have come to know and love. I'm guessing most of us have experienced this, where it came about when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called his older son Esau to him, "My son." And he said to him, "Here I am." Then Isaac said, "Behold, now I am old and do not know the day of my death. Now then please take your gear and your quiver and your bow and go out to the field and hunt game for me and prepare a delicious meal for me such as I love. Bring it to me that I may eat, so my soul may bless you before I die." So the last time food came up in this family story, there was some conflict between the brothers. So already the narrator is pointing out, oh, there's food involved. Something might happen again. Now Rebecca, who is listening while Isaac spoke to his son Esau, so when Esau went to the field to hunt for game to bring home, Rebecca said to her favorite son Jacob, "Behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying, da-da-da-da-da-da." So why is Rebecca doing this? Any ideas? to manipulate the outcome in her favor. Okay? And what is that outcome that she wants? To Jacob to get the blessing. Why is it important for her to have Jacob receive the blessing? Because what? Because God needs help. Good. Okay, what else? Then she'll be taken care of. Tell me how. She'll be taken care of by that son. Good, because her favorite son already has the birthright, swindled his brother out of the birthright, and now if he can receive the blessing, for all intents and purposes, he will be the eldest son of the family. But I would like to suggest there's another reason why she's doing this. Yes? Yeah, God already promised this, right? So she's helping God by taking things into her own hands. But I think there's another reason why this is happening. Any other ideas? It's her favorite son, yes, but there's something else beyond that. Yes?
She's acting out what she saw her dad doing.
She might be acting on what might be occurring, what might have occurred in her family of origin. I think there's some truth there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Good. I think there's another reason. So these chapter breaks are artificial, right? They're put in later. And how you start the story usually frames the story. Let's go back a few verses and let's pretend this chapter break wasn't here. Let's see how I think the story actually starts, just a verse or two earlier. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath, both of them are sweet names, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. So these daughters-in-law, who Esau married, are bringing grief to Isaac and Rebekah. That's the baseline. So now there's this opportunity to maybe have her favorite son, for all intents and purposes, become the eldest son of the family, so that she can find a daughter-in-law that she gets along with. Let's look at the rest of the story. So after the deception, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, notice he takes one line to say this, and see what Rebekah does to this one line. The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob. So one line succinctly says, I'm going to kill my brother. Look what Rebekah does. She takes this one line and she amplifies it. She makes a big deal out of it. Now, in the words of her eldest son Esau, reported Rebekah, she sent word and called her younger son Jacob and said to him, behold, your brother Esau is consoling himself concerning you by planning to kill you. She could have stopped there, but instead she kept on going. Now then, my son, obey my voice. Listen to me. We have to do this now. And arise, flee to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send word to you to get you from there. Why should I lose you both in one day? So she takes that one line and amplifies it, makes it a big deal. And then she turns to her husband. Rebekah said to Isaac, I am tired of living because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth like these, from the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? So again, the conflict with her daughters-in-law. So she's trying to get Jacob to go find someone that she approves of from her own family in Padamaran, so that she can get someone who comes into the family that understands how to run the tent hold correctly, in the same way she does. And then Isaac turns and he says to Jacob, so Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and commanded him, saying to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padamaran, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father. So notice the father's name is Bethuel. Do you see that? And from there, take to yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. So that's what I think this whole deception thing is about. She does not like the idea, the prospect of being the mother of Esau, but having to deal with these daughters-in-law. If I can get my favorite son, to be the firstborn, and he has a daughter-in-law that I get along with, my life will be so much easier. This is a very roundabout way to resolve the problem, all right? Look at all this extra legwork that she and other people are doing to address this. Let's see what happens. So Rebekah's way of resolving the tension with the Hittite daughters-in-law. At the very bottom, she could have prayed about it. She could have applied the Matthew 18 principle with the daughters-in-law. She could have held a family meeting with Esau and the daughters-in-law to work things out. She could have agreed to disagree with her daughters-in-law. Instead, she came up with a creative option to convince her favorite son to dress up in a goat skin to swindle the blessing from her legally blind husband and then scare Jacob out of town to obtain an approved wife from her family back in Padamaran. A very simple and elegant solution, right? All these things have to work out just right. But we know she actually never gets to see her favorite son ever again. So sometimes this indirect way does not actually resolve the tension. If we go to the story when the servant of Abraham goes to find a wife for Isaac, I think we learn a little bit about Rebekah's family and why she might have had this idea in the first place. So when the camels had finished drinking and the man took a gold ring weighing half a shekel, so this heavy gold ring, and 2 bracelets for Rebekah's wrist weighing 10 shekels in gold, and Abraham's servant said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and his trustworthiness towards my master. As for me, the Lord has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers." Then the young woman, Rebekah, ran and told her mother's household about these things. Typically, it's the father's household, right? But she's going to tell her mother's household. Maybe the mother is running the show in this family. Let's keep looking. Now Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran outside to meet the man at the spring. And when he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and when he heard the words of his sister Rebekah saying, "This is what the man said to me," he went to the man, and behold, he was standing by camels at the spring. So what is Laban about? He's about wealth and riches. These camels are much more valuable than donkeys because they can carry much more water. They're much better pack animals for traveling long distances. So he sees this fleet of BMWs, and he's immediately interested. He said, "Come, blessed of the Lord, why do you stand outside since I've prepared the house and place for the BMWs that you own?" So the man entered the house, and Laban unloaded the BMWs and washed the BMWs to take care of them, and then water and wash his feet and the feet of the women who were with him. So he is more interested in what the servant is bringing than the servant. Do we see that? Okay. This is the only time that the father, Bethuel, speaks in this passage, and it's with Laban. It's not by himself. So Laban and Bethuel replied, "The matter has come from the Lord, so we cannot speak to you bad or good. Here is Rebekah before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken." And the servant brought out more articles of silver, articles of gold, and garments, and gave them to Rebekah, and also gave precious things to her brother and her mother. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. Then they got up in the morning and said, "Send me away to my master." But her brother and mother said, so now mom and brother are speaking, so that's mom and Laban, "Let the young woman stay with us a few days, say 10, afterwards she may go." However, he said to them, that's the mother and the brother, "Do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away so that I may go to my master." And they, the brother and the mother, said, "We will call on the young woman and ask her." And then the brother and the mother called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." So they, the mother and the brother, sent away their sister Rebekah and her nurse with Abraham's servant and his men. So the father in this family is more of a figurehead. He doesn't speak very much. The mother, even called the mother's household, she is the one who might be running the family. And if this is the way Rebekah grew up in her family of origin, that the mom sometimes calls the shots, when she is in her family of procreation, and it comes time to make critical decisions, it would make sense that she would want to pull the strings, because that's what she saw in her family of origin. So she might just be doing the same thing, replicating what she saw when it comes to her family with Isaac and her 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. So she may not be creating something totally new, she's just repeating an old pattern. Do you see this? Every behavior is a symptom of the system. So she's pulling from her own system, her own family of origin, to inform her how to navigate these challenging situations. Detriangulating is probably the most important technique in family systems therapy. The most important technique in family systems therapy, because it's a way to not get caught up in other people's unresolved tension. This is really challenging to do. So it's not about taking sides. It's not even about solving problems. It's about not getting caught up in other people's business. For those of you who are numbers oriented, who like math, you can figure out the number of triangles in the room based on the number of people using this formula. So if there are 3 people, you do 3 times 2 times 1 over 3 times 2 times 1. So if there are 3 people in the room, there's 1 triangle. If there are 4 people in the room, it's 4 times 3 times 2 over 3 times 2 times 1. So there are 4 possible triangles. And as you move up, all of a sudden, if there's 10 people in the room, there are 120 possible triangles. If there are 300 people in the room, there's 4.5 million possible triangles. So there's lots of possibility for people to share unresolved tension and maladaptively navigate these relational triangles. I'm going to try and teach you to understand what's happening so you can navigate them differently. So I'm going to show you 4 different scenarios in a family and to understand how triangles work. All right, left-hand side. We have 2 people who do not get along right now. There's some tension. There's instability in their relationships. An unstable dyad, that's 2 people, can be stabilized by the addition of a third party. So a third person or third party comes into their relationship, and that can actually stabilize these 2 on the left. Let's watch this. Let's say these 2 people on the bottom left, maybe they disagree theologically about something, maybe in Daniel 7 or Daniel 8. But when someone comes to Sabbath school and they have coffee in their hand, we can agree that coffee is bad. So even though they disagree about something, there's a lot of tension in Sabbath school. As soon as this coffee bringer comes in, oh, we can both agree that that is bad. That should not be happening. All of a sudden, these 2 start getting along because they're united against this enemy. So the addition of a third party can change what happens between 2 people who experience some distress in their relationship. Likewise, on the right-hand side, a stable dyad can be destabilized by the addition of a third party. Let's say there's 2 people in a romantic relationship, and they get along fine, and then a baby comes, and all of a sudden, the baby demands more of their attention. They spend more of their emotional capacity helping the baby and less time on their relationship, so all of a sudden, their relationship suffers. So the addition of a third party can change what happens between 2 people. Likewise, the removal of a third party can also change what happens between 2 people. On the left-hand side, we have some tension between 2 individuals. Let's say they are neighbors. There's an unstable dyad here, and they're neighbors, and they're watching a football game. And one of them is a Raiders fan, still salty about the fact they went down to Las Vegas, and the other one is a San Francisco 49ers fan. And it happens to be a Niners versus Raiders game, so they are in tension with one another while the game is on. But as soon as the game is done, they can go back to being friends. But while the game is on, there's some tension between them. Likewise, on the right-hand side, let's say we have 2 passionate individuals in Sabbath school. This is slipping around for some reason, apologize. 2 passionate individuals in Sabbath school, powerful personalities. But we have a really good facilitator leading the group and making sure that powerful personalities don't take over the whole class. So this person right here is leading the Sabbath school. They're really good at managing these powerful personalities, but unfortunately this person has to move over to Massachusetts. And when the Sabbath school leader leaves, these powerful personalities, which were kind of kept in check by this good facilitator, they are left to their own devices, and all of a sudden they start to experience tension in their relationship. If Donald Trump came in and sat down here, that might change the way you and I interact. If Barack Obama came and sat down here, that might change the way you and I interact. And when Donald Trump leaves, when Barack Obama leaves, that might also change back the way we were interacting. So relationships are not about 2s. Relationships are not about 2s. So regardless of whether the dyad, 2 people experience conflict or no conflict, the addition of or the removal of a third party can change what happens between those 2 people. So what does this mean? I want you to entertain this paradigm shift, this idea that relationships are about 3s, not 2s. 3s, not 2s. It's not always 3 people, it's 3 parties. So we can have 2 people in a relationship, and the third party can be an addiction. It can be a hobby. It can be a pet. It can be an in-law. It can be a career. It can be a dream. It can be a child. It can be a neighbor. It can be a brother. It can be anything. So relationships are not about 2s. They are about 3s, because that third party, the addition of or the removal of that third party, has some influence over what happens between these 2 people. And if we can entertain this little paradigm shift, then I think some of our relationships will make more sense. And if you don't agree with me right now, that's okay. I want you to just suspend reality and pretend that relationships are about threes. Otherwise, the rest of the presentation will be bumbo jumbo. All right, so triangles are the basic building blocks of emotional systems. Is anyone a construction worker or an engineer in here? Yeah, okay. Can you tell us about triangles? Why do people use triangles? The strongest geometric shape. Why is it so strong? It'll stay put. And what happens when there's pressure on the top of the triangle? What happens? The pressure is redistributed amongst the rest of the triangle, right? That's why triangles are the building blocks of emotional systems, because 3 people can handle more tension than just 2 people. So if we can start to see 3s as the building blocks, not 2s, we can start to understand better what's happening in our relationships. So relational triangle, any 3-person emotional configuration. When one relationship gets intertwined with the addiction of a third person, party, object, job, pet, substance, career, dream, anything, sports team, whatever that is, that can change what happens between the 2 people. You can also have interlocking triangles. So right now, I am in many different triangles. I have triangles over here. I'm also part of triangles over here, so I'm in multiple triangles. So what can happen is there can be interlocking triangle where distress from one triangle flows to me, and I am an awesome conduit and just spread that stress onto other triangles. So some of the stress can flow through me to the interlocking triangles. So when are triangles created? When there's 2 people who experience distress, and there's too much distress that they can handle. When that happens, there's some overflow of this anxiety. And when there's an overflow of this anxiety, beyond what the dyad between the 2 people can handle, they often bring in a third person to help them carry the load. So there's distress in the dyad, and they pass their anxiety down the line to someone else who's willing to hear them, support them, take their side, be an ally. And this new person acts as my anxiety release, either an ally or a scapegoat. Maybe I might blame them for what's happening over here, or I'm having someone rally to my side so I feel more emotionally supported. This is really a multi-level modeling scheme in our relationships. We're trying to pass anxiety that we can't handle onto other people who are willing to support us. So really what's happening is, if there's too much between you and me, I need to find another receptacle, another area, another place to move all this excess distress so it doesn't just sit here in our relationship. Trying to pass it on down the line to other people who are willing to receive it and help me with it. So I'm basically a broker of anxiety. I'm taking it, looking at it, passing it along. To the extent that you become responsible for or try to change the relationship of 2 others, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. So the more you get involved in trying to help other people resolve their tension, the more you will experience the distress of their relationship. This is why we get stressed out and overwhelmed when we are trying to help other people with their problems, because we are getting involved and we're starting to feel responsible for it. Then we start to experience and take on some of that stress, not just mentally, but physiologically in our bodies and relationally. So this affects our well-being, our health, our other relationships. So the more we get involved, the more we experience the distress of that relationship. Not this summer, but previous summer, I did some gardening with my daughter. So we planted some tomato plants and some basil plants and a few pepper plants and zucchini plants, the typical stuff so my daughters can learn how things grow. And I put on gloves to do this because I know when I put my gloves in the mud, my gloves are probably going to get muddy, right? That's usually what happens. Rarely do I take my gloves and put in the mud. Rarely does the mud get glovey. It's usually my gloves that get muddy. This is what happens. We get involved in other people's stuff, our gloves get muddy. So triangulation is actually an anxiety management strategy, which relies on other people getting involved in our unresolved distress in order to help us feel calmer. The goal of all of this is to try and find some calmness in the anxiety storm. That's the whole goal of this, to unload some of our distress, have people who are willing volunteers to help us carry it, so I can feel better about this. So it's this management strategy. If you've ever done me wrong, just know my mom knows, and she doesn't like you. Because when I share this unresolved distress with someone else, they might say, oh, Brian, they should not have treated you that way. Shame on them. What should we do to get back at them? And my mom is going to have this and form this opinion about you, even though you don't even know that I've talked with her. So we formed a triangle, you, me, and my mom. My mom has taken my side. So I've been looking for some advice, some support, because of this unresolved tension between you and me. That's how triangles work. Because anxiety is like a hot potato. It's hot. We don't want to hold on to it for too long. It can burn our hands. This summer I was taking my daughter to swim lessons, and she would get out of the pool, and she would start doing this on the concrete. Why? Because it's hot. You don't want to touch it for very long. The same thing with anxiety. We don't want to touch or handle anxiety very long, so we try and juggle it and pass it on to the next individual, someone who's willing to help us hold on to this really hot potato. Most people in relationships are behaving in response to anxieties rather than to each other. A lot of the challenges we experience in relationships are not necessarily about the other person. It's about our anxious response to whatever is happening. We're really responding to our anxiety and the unresolved distress, not the actual individual. Because we have a lot of hot potatoes on our plate. A lot of hot potatoes. Triangling is both an emotional process and an anxiety binding process that shifts anxiety around a system, which might have a high degree of emotional intensity. Some triangles feel stable, other triangles feel unstable. We'll talk about this later on in the afternoon. Anxiety is transferable and it's contagious, like a hot potato. If I say, like, there's a mouse in here, we might look to try and find the mouse just because I mentioned it, right? All of a sudden, you get activated, want to try and find the mouse. Where's the mouse? Where's this response? Just because I mentioned it. So just like something like that information, like a mouse, anxiety is something that can pass from person to person to person to person. And there can be this domino effect amongst interlocking triangles. When there's bad news, it's passed from person to person to person. All these different triangles can experience some of the distress of what's happening. Because anxiety has staying power. And triangles are forever and can outlive the people in them. Sometimes we think our family or our church would be better if someone would just move away and never come back. But just because they move away and never come back does not mean that the unresolved tension that we experience with them also disappears. Oh, it's still there. It's just latent. Imagine there's a 17-year-old male who lives in Sacramento with his parents, and his parents are too strict. They just have the tough rules. He has to get back inside by 10 p.m. when all the rest of his friends can stay out till 12 a.m., 2 hours longer. He gets really, really upset at his strict parents. So one morning, he decides to look at his piggy bank. He pulls out all of his change, all of his money. He goes to Amtrak or Greyhound. He gets a ticket all the way to Miami. He's leaving his parents. He's running away from home. He's going to go live with his aunt and uncle in Miami. And when he gets there, his aunt and uncle say, oh, I'm so sorry. It must have been really hard that you had to run away from home. Here, come, live with us. So because he's moved away from his parents, does that mean the tension between him and his parents has disappeared? No, it's still there. Still there. It's just not as activated because they're not as around as often. But if they come to visit for Thanksgiving, the tension is definitely still going to be there, right? They will be thinking about it. He will be thinking about it. The aunt and uncle will be thinking about it. So just because someone leaves or moves away does not mean the tension disappears. And if someone passes away, the tension does not disappear. It just gets redistributed amongst the rest of the remaining family members. So anxiety and distress does not evaporate. It has staying power. It's not time that heals all wounds, right? It's what we do with that time. Time itself does not heal the wounds. A lot of the stress we deal with is not really our stress to deal with. It's been passed on to us from other people or from our family of origin, like a precious family heirloom. And we just become accustomed to handling other people's hot potatoes. And sometimes it becomes difficult to decipher, are these my hot potatoes or other people's hot potatoes? Oh, they're just all hot potatoes. It doesn't really matter. I think it might matter. Most people spend more energy working on other people's problems than we do working on our own problems. Changed my mind. Why? Because their problems are their problems, and we can meddle and play and adjust and suggest and move and support, and then we can back away. When it's on our own problems, it's front and center, right? It's harder to deal with our own stuff. It's much easier to play with other people's stuff. Why is triangling useful? It is actually useful in families and churches. Why? Because it's a strong emotional structure. When there's a lot of burden on the relationships, we can redistribute it amongst other people who are willing to support. So in some ways, triangles are really helpful, really supportive, right? So the less a family or church is able to manage their individual distress, the less able they are to identify their own values, feelings, and reactivity as distinct and different from others, and the less they're going to be able to distinguish their own hot potatoes from other people's hot potatoes, and these just become everybody's communal hot potatoes. But not everyone is willing to take care of the same amount of hot potatoes as other people. Some people are cheerful volunteers and want to help out more and will take one for the team and take more hot potatoes on because it's their sacrificial role. Other people don't want to do that as much. So we have differing levels of willingness to deal with hot potatoes. And the more likely these families or churches will depend on triangulation in order to stabilize the system. Many hot mitts make light work. The more people we can bring into this, the more hot potatoes we can handle, right? Which is true, but the goal isn't to try and handle the most hot potatoes. There's no first place award for churches or families who are able to handle the most hot potatoes. There's no award for that. This individual on the left is juggling 3 batons. He has one on his hip. I'm betting he could juggle 4, right? That's my guess. He's just warming up for the crowd. He could probably juggle 4 batons, 4 hot potatoes. On the right-hand side, we have 3 individuals, and they're juggling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different hot potatoes. So 14 can be juggled between 3 people. That's pretty impressive. Sometimes, though, these hot potatoes are hot. They're not just hot potatoes. There's some risk involved. So on the bottom left, we have an individual who is juggling chainsaws. I would not recommend this. I don't juggle, but just thinking about this, it seems like a dangerous situation. On the right-hand side, on the bottom right, we have another dangerous situation where 2 individuals are precariously balanced on the shoulders of other people and are counting on these other people's stability to keep them upright. And they're juggling batons. Sometimes the situations we are in our families and our churches are precarious. And we have some hot potatoes we're trying to juggle. We don't want to hold on to them too long, so we pass them down the line because it's hard to hold on to them. So in highly anxious and polarized families or churches, it becomes more difficult for the clinician, that would be me, to resist engaging in the triangles. So when I'm doing therapy, if they're polarized, it's really inviting. It pulls me in because I get this emotional reaction to what's happening, and I want to get pulled in. But when that happens, I lose objectivity, and my clinical intention is compromised. But it's not just me as a marriage and family therapist. I want you to substitute me or my instead of clinical. In highly anxious and polarized families and churches, it becomes more difficult for me to resist engaging in their triangles. Then my objectivity is lost, and my intention is compromised. When we get sucked into their business, we lose the outside perspective because we get muddy gloves. Are they helpless, or do you just want to feel needed? Sometimes we create these narratives about who we are and our relation to other people. We are helpers, we are peacemakers, we are heroes, we have insight, we have wisdom, we have experience, and we are supposed to, we are called to. We are put in this place on earth to help other people with all of the unresolved tension. So these narratives we create about ourselves actually keep us there, staying involved in other people's stuff. So we might say, well, they need me right now. They need me specifically. They need my help. I'm their pastor. I'm their friend. I'm their neighbor. I'm their mother. They are my friends and family, and I have a responsibility to handle their hot potatoes. In fact, it's my job, it's my role, it's my responsibility, it's my gift. I know what to do. I've been down this road before. I know how to tie a shoe. I'm there. I'm a rescuer, I'm a helper, I'm a peacemaker, I'm a hero. I know how to fix this. It's a simple fix, right? And I can take one for the team. I'm willing to shoulder this burden right now. So we have all of these narratives in place that keep us stuck helping other people. Good thing they called me. I'm a neutral party and a great listener. And later on, now when I talk to the other person on your behalf, I'll need to hear their side of the story too. Blessed to be the middleman. The more we get involved in other people's unresolved distress, the more we experience the distress and the tension of that relationship. And sometimes it's not us spinning these narratives, it's other people spinning the narratives for us, saying, you're so good at listening. I feel so safe with you. You're so supportive. Nobody understands me like you do. I can always count on you. Or, we need a mediator, and you're such a good neutral party. We need you here to help us. And even the subtle phrase of, I'm just worried about so-and-so. And then they unload the hot potato. Or, I need your advice. Here's my hot potato. These all can be subtle ways to get us to be hooked into their unresolved distress and take some of their unresolved tension from them. Yes? We need to pray for someone. That's good. That's a sanctified way of doing it, right? We really need to pray about so-and-so. Let me tell you what's happening. Here's a hot potato. Here, take this hot potato and say a prayer. Yeah, good. Worry is often used as a way to justify gossip and triangulation. So it's my own anxiety that's wanting me to pass on these hot potatoes to other people. Okay, this is snow on the left. Is it snow like this here? Occasionally, okay. So I hear occasionally. Has anyone ever lived in a part of the U.S. or other parts of the world where it snows more? Okay, so is this snow, for those of us who don't know, this snow on the left, is this hard and fluffy or is it not hard and fluffy? Oh, sorry, soft and fluffy. So it's definitely, it's heavy. Ooh, that's a good word. It's heavy, right? It's heavy. How do you know it's heavy? Chunks been disturbed. I saw someone doing this. A snowplow has compacted it. So if this individual was going to leave their front door, they would have to walk over this mound of snow, correct? Yeah? Okay. How about this? There's a car in the driveway. And is this boulder of snow hard or soft? Okay. Could you just take a little snow shovel and move it? Why not? That's what snow shovels are for. It's more like ice. Okay, it's frozen. Okay. So let's notice, how is this individual going to get their car out? Call me. So call someone else, get some help to move it. Yeah, okay. How about this in the bottom left? If this person in the bottom left, they can't even open their garage door if it's one of those doors that swings out, right? To even get the snow shovel or get to their vehicle. There's all this compacted snow. This final one, this is a story that happened back in 2007 in Benton Harbor, Michigan. There was an individual who went to this is an auto parts store up here. They went to the auto parts store. They did not like how they were treated by the manager, so they left home in a huff. 2 or 3 weeks later, they were called at 3 in the morning because one of their part-time jobs was to put a plow in the front of their pickup truck and to come and plow this particular parking lot. Once they realized where they were going, they decided to push all of the snow up to the front door so that any patron that was going to try and go inside this establishment would be forced to climb over this snow. This is a form of revenge. Let's pretend I live on a cul-de-sac. So there are 4 or 5 houses on the cul-de-sac. And it snows 6 inches one night. I go out there. Ooh, a lot of snow. Better get to work, roll up my sleeves, take a shovel, move snow from my driveway. Say the houses are fairly close together, like condos. And I move from one driveway over to my neighbor's driveway. So now my driveway is clear, right? 20 minutes later, my neighbor comes out. Whoa, it snowed a lot. It looks extra thick on my driveway. Well, better get rid of it. Shovels the 12 ounces of snow over to his neighbor's driveway, right? Third neighbor comes out. Hour later. Oh, it snowed a lot. Oh, that must have really dumped specifically on my driveway. So they take the 18 inches of snow and shovel it to their neighbor's driveway. 3 hours later, that fourth neighbor comes out. Whoa, 24 inches of snow. That's a lot of snow. Better shovel it. And all of a sudden, if we're close enough at the end of the driveway, at the end of the cul-de-sac, the final person could just move their snow over to my driveway. And we would spend all of our time re-shoveling the same snow over and over and over. When you push snow around, does it get rid of the snow? When you just push snow around, it does not get rid of the snow. Very similar in our relationships. When we just push and move and broker hot potatoes around, the hot potatoes do not disappear. Instead, the anxiety and unresolved tension gets compacted in the relationship, in the system. And all of a sudden, this becomes the new norm. I'm guessing most of us know some families that run or operate with a little bit more tension and unresolved anxiety compared to other families. Because this just becomes the new family norm. When we just push snow around, it does not get rid of the snow. It gets off of our plate, but within the system, it just moves it around. All right, can you think of any triangles in Abraham's family? Any triangles that comes to mind? Yes. 2 wives, who? Abraham, Hagar, and Sarah. Great, that's one triangle. Awesome. Another triangle. Isaac, Rebecca, and Jacob. Good, that's another triangle. Give me another one. Esau, Jacob, and Rebecca. Good. Any 3 people will be a triangle, right? Even across multiple generations.
What you said before, Laban,
Laban, the gold, and the servant. All of a sudden, he was getting along real well with the servant because he was getting along with the gold, right? That changed his relationship with the servant. The presence of the gold and the BMWs changed the way he was relating to the servant. Great example. You should come around and travel with me. That's the second time you asked the question that I should make sure to incorporate into all these presentations. Good. So any 3 people or parties in the Abrahamic narrative is a triangle. But we don't actually need to actively participate in these triangles. But when we allow ourselves to be triangulated into other people's unresolved distress, we don't actually remove any of the anxiety. We just shovel it around. We say, please put it on my driveway. I'll deal with it later. Or there's too much on my driveway. Any volunteers? Thank you. I'll put some on your driveway as well. Instead, we just spread that anxiety around. The result is we perpetuate the practice of spreading anxiety to and from those that we love and that we care about. Spreading anxiety is different from resolving tension. It's just pushing it around. So we can find ourselves carrying other people's anxiety, and when that happens, I'm letting myself get involved in their business, and then I'm thinking about their problems as if they are my own. So to the extent that you become responsible for or try to change the relationship to others, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. And what happens to the whole system if multiple people in the system are doing this? People become dependent on others to manage their anxiety. I become dependent on other people to help me manage my distress with someone else. Conflict is not managed directly, then nobody assumes responsibility for their own anxiety and unresolved conflict, and then anxiety and unresolved issues become stuck and frozen in the family system, and this ultimately prevents growth and compromises objectivity, and all of a sudden we are walking on eggshells because we can't talk about certain things. We can't address them. I'd rather pretend like this mound of hot potatoes is not here. This is too hot to touch. I can't handle this. And all of a sudden, this becomes the norm. There's just piles of hot potatoes, unresolved tension in our family because we don't know how to deal with it, and we're sick of pushing it around. Little Miss takes on other people's anxiety as if it were her own. Sometimes it's difficult to know, are these my hot potatoes or other people's hot potatoes? Because for so long, they've been communal hot potatoes. And sometimes we have difficulty knowing whether it's our responsibility to take care of or not take care of these. Whew, finally a break. Brian's been talking for a while. Now is an opportunity for you all to talk. I want you to get in groups of 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5. I do not want 6. So 2 to 4 to 5 people. And I want you to try and answer these questions. 1, what is a triangle? What's a relational triangle? And how do they work, quote unquote? How do they function? Next, why are triangles, not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems? 3, What are some reasons or narratives or justifications for us to continue willingly be involved and participate in triangles? And then finally, what happens to us and or the system when we participate in triangles? So get in small groups, just turn around and try and answer these questions. Their hand over here.
No, we should pray, absolutely. But we should also take responsibility when it's our responsibility.
Let's tap into the wisdom of the group. Help me understand what we talked about. What's a good answer that you heard come out of your own mouth or someone else's mouth near you? What is the relational triangle and how do they work? Raise your hand. What's a relational triangle and how do they work? How do they function?
Really, any three entities in a relationship.
3 entities, 3 parties, 3 people in a relationship. Right? It's emotional configuration. Good. And how do they work? Someone else. How do they work? How do they operate? How do they function?
Well, your topic is on unresolved stress. As long as you have more people carry that stress.
Good. So when there's distress in a relationship, if there's too much for 2 people to carry, we have the third person help stabilize this relationship by unloading some of our unresolved stress, some of these hot potatoes. So now we have 3 people carrying the load. And we Right, Brian, why is Brian focusing on the negative? He's so judgmental, so critical, right? There's some good things too, right? If there's good news, are you saying we can't share that? Well, of course we can share that, right? And I'm not worried about you sharing good news. I'm worried about the hot potatoes landing on your lap that are not your hot potatoes, right? That's what I'm worried about. Yeah, yes? Oh, is God part of the triangle? This is excellent, absolutely. I think we should be including God as part of the triangle. Absolutely, you can bring your problem to God, lay them at his feet, and I think we should be doing that. I think that there's a risk in how we do that. If, let's say this is my hot potato, and I have a responsibility for it. If I bring my hot potato to God and leave it there and walk away, and I think I'm absolved of any responsibility dealing with my own hot potato, then I'm not taking responsibility for any hot potatoes that I create. And I'm just taking them to God. Should we take things to God? Absolutely. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Absolutely. Other people's problems? Good. Lift them up in prayer. But if I'm just praying and not doing, faith without works is dead. We should be doing things when it comes to our hot potato, things that we are responsible for. I think that those 2 things need to pair together. Yes? Absolutely. But if we're praying, and after we pray, we say, oh, good, I'm done. La, 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 la. I close my ears. Then I'm not listening for any response. I'm leaving it there and walking away. When maybe I need to return to God and help and ask him to give me wisdom and guidance and strength to figure out what I'm supposed to do with the hot potato. Sometimes we need to leave it there. Sometimes we need to address it and deal with it. And sometimes we don't know the difference. So we think we checked the box. We prayed, now we're done. I don't know if we're done just because we pray. I think that's the first step. Okay. Why are triangles, not dyads, the basic building blocks of emotional systems? Why are triads, not dyads, the basic building blocks? Yes?
Relationships are automatically triangles.
Oh, good. Because Brian says relationships are about 3s, not 2s. There's always some other party involved. Even if there's 2 people, and even if one person knows about the third party, even if one person knows about the addiction or the secret hobby, or they're sharing stuff with their brother about what's happening, the other person doesn't even need to know that they are in a triangle, but they are already in the triangle. What are some reasons or narratives or justifications why we willingly participate in triangles? I want to be in the know. Yeah, I care about you. Show me your hot potatoes. Show me your wares. Show me what you have to offer. Yes? Oh, okay. So we are busying ourselves with other people's hot potatoes so we don't actually have to deal with the hot potatoes that are our own under our own nose. Okay? What's another narrative or justification for why we continue to partake in other people's hot potatoes? Yes, in the green. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Getting support and help is very helpful. So I don't want you to walk away saying, wow, Brian says we should be cold-hearted robots and not help other people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to be wise about how we're doing this and maybe navigate a new way. Because when we reach out to get support, that support can be life-giving and life-affirming, right? So we should be able to do that. But there are some people we should reach out to, and some people maybe we should not reach out to, and some people are really quick to volunteer to help. Maybe they have their own hot potatoes to deal with. They have a plate full of hot potatoes, but they're just interested in dealing with other people's hot potatoes. So they're walking around like this, trying to manage their own hot potatoes by ignoring their own hot potatoes so they can deal with other people's hot potatoes instead. What's another justification or narrative why we should continue to participate in triangles? Yes? Yes, bear each other's burdens, yes. Bring that up at the end. At the very end of this afternoon, we'll look at that verse in a little closer detail to see what it's actually saying. We like to focus on that piece, bear each other's burdens, but there's another piece there that Paul is also saying there needs to be a tension between these two things. It's not just bearing other people's burdens. There's another piece as well. Good. What's one more story why we should participate in triangles? Yes?
Why do you use the word willingly?
Because we do it, whether it's subconsciously or not, and if people force us to, we're doing it willingly. We could say, I'm not going to do it. Yes, yes. So triangles are imposed on this, but you do not have to actively participate in all of the triangles. You will still be in the triangle, but not an active participant in resolving other people's distress. So how active you are. You can be on the basketball team and ride the bench. You don't always have to be out there touching the ball. You can say, no, it's your show. I'll be here on the bench. I don't need to be the star player because it's you two that need to resolve this. It's not my issue. Good. What happens to us or the system when we continue to participate in these triangles and never actually resolve the distress? We're just shoveling it around. What happens? It gets bigger. Yeah? Okay, what else happens? We get distressed. We experience some of that distress physiologically. Sometimes one or more people in the system start to develop some symptoms themselves, some biological symptoms themselves. What else? Yes?
It gets lopsided because I notice that I always go to people that I think are going to agree with me rather than an objective person.
But we go to people who we know are going to take our side. And typically in a family system, it's those that are most vulnerable that end up experiencing more of the unpleasant symptoms of distress. Because hot potatoes are shoved their way, and they may not know how to get rid of the hot potatoes. They keep coming their way, and they get piled on and piled on. Good. Okay. So let's increase our awareness of how we participate in triangles, and then later on explore how we can do this differently. So how do we participate in triangles? Let's talk about our role. We'll talk about our role and our position, and then we'll be done for this morning. So there are 3 different roles we can play in a triangle. We can generate, we can amplify, or we can dampen. We can generate anxiety, we can introduce anxiety, we can amplify it, make a bigger deal about it, or we can dampen the anxiety. Those are the 3 different roles we can play. Not every triangle has all 3 roles represented. A triangle is not one generator, one amplifier, one dampener. These are just 3 possible roles we can play. I have done all of these roles at different times. Most of us are good at generating and amplifying. Most of us need practice at dampening. So each triangle does not have all of these roles represented, and you can switch roles mid-triangle. I can generate the anxiety, and then I can amplify it later. So let's look at this. So generator brings their anxiety as their +1. Hey, you need to pay attention to this. I have a hot potato. Someone needs to help me with this. That's a generator, bringing people's attention to this anxiety that needs some attention. The amplifier catches the anxiety, and as their name indicates, they amplify it. They react to it. And usually they do one of 2 things. They try and rescue, make a big deal about it, we got to do something about it, or they dismiss it as not that big of a deal. Dismissing and rescuing, both of those can actually amplify the anxiety. Here's the situation. Let's say there's a 10-year-old female. A daughter comes to her mom and says, Mom, I'm getting bullied at school. And the mom catches that anxiety doesn't know how to deal with it, and thinks, no, it's really not that big of a deal. I'll tell her that. Sally, it's not that big of a deal. You're only in this classroom for another 4 or 5 months. Kids will be kids. You just got to toughen up. Just got to get over it. Got to have some thick skin. She's like, but Mom, they're bullying me. They're making fun of the way that I look, the way that I speak. It's not that big of a deal. Don't let them get to you. Like, just don't worry about it. Kids will be kids. Like, they'll grow out of it. And so what's happening? She's actually amplifying her daughter's anxiety. Because her daughter brought this to someone, her caregiver, to help her. The one person she had to have courage to do this, brings to the caregiver, and the caregiver just said, your big deal is not a big deal. It's small. Wait till you have my kind of problems. So now the girl is left without the support she needs. So her anxiety has been amplified. Let's say she goes to her father. Dad, I'm getting bullied at school. What? People are making fun of you. Who is making fun of you? What are their names? You tell me right now. Hold on, let me pull up my phone. I'm going to call the teacher right now to give them a piece of my mind. In fact, I'm going to take you to school on Monday, and we're going to go and stand in front of your classroom, and you're going to point out who the mean kids are. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to make sure who they are, and I'm going to write it out to the principal, and I'm going to be there at PTA conferences, and I'm going to make sure this should not be happening to you. In fact, let's go right now. Let's go over to their house and have a conversation. So this person is catching her anxiety and trying to go rescue, right? This is also amplifying her anxiety, even though he's trying to help, even though the dismissive mom was trying to help, right? In both situations, these were actually amplifying the anxiety. Yes?
The Myers-Briggs disorder, which one of those typically is an amplifier? Any one of those, the 4 categories.
Yeah.
And there's 2 within each one.
So her question is about the Myers-Briggs, so the I, the E, the N, yeah. So it's not about which personality type. It's about if you're catching their anxiety. If you catch their anxiety, you're likely to amplify it, either by making a big deal or dismissing it. Yes?
If that happened to your daughter, what would you do about it?
In a perfect world? Right? Well, since I'm in front and I'm making this scenario, I'm going to paint myself in the best light. Is that all right? Okay. I'm going to be an anxiety dampener. Say the daughter goes to her grandma or Brian. Grandma, Nana, Gma, I'm getting bullied at school. Instead of amplifying, the grandma can say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Come here, come sit down with me. This is hard. I'm so sorry you don't feel safe at school. Thanks for coming to talk with me about it. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm here. I'm here. All right. We can get through this. Let's notice the different sort of response. Grandma did not catch her granddaughter's anxiety. She was recognizing this is hard and heavy, invited her to come here, tried her best to create a safe space, create a non-anxious presence, so that her granddaughter has a safe place to land. Because when we address anxiety in this way, because these are all subconscious processes, we don't always recognize we're doing this, but when this happens, when a stressful moment is met with more distress, or it's caught or amplified, it gets bigger. When it's met with calm, it starts to seem smaller and more manageable. It's not about rescuing them from their anxiety. It's about sharing some of your calmness with them, being a dampener, not catching their distress, and being a non-anxious presence so that they can share their anxiety, but also have a safe place to land. Because remember, the reason we triangulate is because we're trying to find calmness. We're trying to unload our hot potatoes onto other people so we can feel calmer. But the grandma is not taking responsibility for, not trying to fix the fact that her granddaughter is getting bullied, but she's trying to be a safe presence, because that's the first thing that needs to be addressed. When there's a problem or issue, there's always, I see your hand, I'll get to you in a second. There's always 2 problems. The first one is the problem right in front of our nose. The problem is she's getting bullied. And we think if we can solve that problem, then we're good. But there's always a bigger problem, a bigger P in the background. And that's how we emotionally feel about the fact that I'm getting bullied. And that's what needs to be addressed. So grandma is addressing the uppercase P, the emotional experience of being bullied. Just because you remove the bully, let's say we go in and let's say the dad is on his rampage. Okay, all these kids, get them all kicked out of the school. Just because those 3 bullies were kicked out of the school, does the unresolved tension disappear? No, it's still going to be there, still latent. In fact, they might see each other at church or down the road, and their daughter might still be anxious about other people potentially bullying her because her emotional reaction to that has not been supported. Instead, we were just trying to solve the problem and checking the box. But the emotional piece of how we respond to our problems, that needs to be addressed. And the anxiety dampener is addressing that by not catching the other person's anxiety and providing a supportive, nurturing situation. There's a hand back there. But still doesn't solve the problem. How do we solve the problem? Right. Brian, can you just skip to the end of your presentation, please? Can you just jump to the afternoon? I don't want to sit through the rest of it. Tell me the answer. Can you please save me from the anxiety that I'm experiencing about this? Can you please take my hot potato? I'm going to let you sit with this unresolved tension for a little bit longer, but I promise I'll come back to it. Yep. Okay. Why are you dragging all that negativity into this triangle? Because it needed to be brought to your attention. You know I can't resist making mountains out of your molehills. This isn't even my molehill. I don't care whose it is because it's mine now. So those are their roles. And then our position in the triangle. This is real simple. You're an outsider or you're an insider. It's one of those two things. You're an outsider or an insider. When things are good, people are getting along, that's great. But when there's some tension between two people, they try and find someone on the outside to help them participate. So here's the insiders. There's some tension between Q and P. T is the outsider, right? Issue is between these two people. This is the outsider. But these two people have some distress. They're going to try and recruit T to help them carry some of their hot potatoes, right? So T has to figure out, am I an outsider or am I an insider? Because they're going to try and convince me that I'm an insider and I have a responsibility to help handle their hot potatoes. But if I'm an outsider, if I'm the odd person out, this is actually the preferable position. Because if you're doing this, you're able to recognize who is responsible for the challenges, and if it's my responsibility or not. As soon as you get involved, you're going to get muddy gloves, and then it's really hard to extricate yourself when you've already inserted yourself to try and help solve the problem. And the more you get involved in other people's distress, the more you experience the distress of that relationship. So stay outside of their business. If it's their business, it's their business, right? So we have to be smart about whose business is it. And sometimes you're like, well, everybody's business is my business, right? I have a punch card. I can go to everybody and help them out because that's what I'm known for in the community. If you do that, you might be spending more emotional energy carrying other people's hot potatoes, and the likelihood is you're not spending as much time on your own hot potatoes because you're in high demand. Okay. So real quick, before we're done, just the last 5 minutes. What's the difference between a generator, amplifier, dampener? Talk to your groups. Does a triangle always have all 3 roles of a generator, amplifier, and dampener represented? And what is the difference between the inside and outside position? So real quick, 3 minutes, we'll have a conversation, and then we'll end. during the sermon. I'll just typical sermon. Yeah, thank you. One more minute, and we're going to come together. All right. To close, let's tap into the wisdom of the group. What's the difference between a generator, amplifier, or dampener roles? Someone help me out. Your choice, okay. And what are the three choices? What are the three options? Bring the fire, feed the fire, or douse the fire. Is that what you're going to say? Contain the fire, right. You're not going to pour gasoline on it, right? If someone brings a match, that's a generator. Amplifier pours gasoline on it. The dampener says, whoa, that's hot. That's a hot match. What are we going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And then, okay, it's a hot match. All right, let's just put this down for a second. Oh, it's burning. That's hot, huh? And respond to it in a very different manner. They're not catching the anxiety. Good. Does a triangle always have these three roles represented? No. Good. You can have a generator, then someone who amplifies it, a third person who amplifies it, and if it does not get enough attention, that first person who generated it says, we need to pay more attention to it. I'm going to amplify it as well. So we can swap between these different roles. What's the difference between the insider versus outsider? In which position does Brian say is preferable? Outsider. Why the outsider? More objective. Good. You lose objectivity once you get involved. And the more you get involved, the more you experience the distress of that relationship. All right, let's say a quick prayer, and then we'll transition. Father God, relationships are so tricky here on earth. And I know you know that. And I know that you are in millions of triangles with us. And we don't always know how to navigate these relationships. We need your wisdom. We need your guidance. We need your strength. We need your perspective. I thank you for being a good God who's always there to support us. Be with us as we continue to worship you on this Sabbath. Amen.